Yes. Fuck. Let's try again. Oh my god. Do you know any jokes? In the meantime? I think we can somehow pull it up again. Okay. Make yourself comfortable. We will get there. Where is this cursor? Man, it's not gonna work. Yes. We are partially there. Would be much easier if I wouldn't be half blind. Okay, now I just need to move this here. No. Yes. Now tell me when my mouse is... Yes. Damn, we have it. Okay. Minor technical difficulties. Sorry for that. Are we having fun? How do you enjoy the event? Do you like it? It's not enough energy. I know you had food. You've been sitting here for a while. Maybe let's stand up for a moment. You know, it's good for your body. Do something good for your body. Like let's increase the blood flow. Amazing. Yes. I see that most of you stood up. Raise your hands. Do this. Oh, stretch as much as you can. Yeah. Do this. One leg up. Another leg up. Yeah, you like, that's fine. That's enough. So you just increase the blood flow in your body, which will hopefully help you to not fall asleep while I will be talking. And yeah, so my talk is exactly as was said. What does it really mean to be a 10x engineer? But before I will get into the root of the topic, I want to make some introduction that I hope will help you to understand why I'm actually talking about this. So let's go. I'm Filip Rakowski. I'm a co-founder and CTO of Allokai. I've been here many times. I hope at least some of you know me very well, or at least slightly. And not that long ago, it really seemed that choosing a career as a software developer guarantees a very bright future, right? The amount of job postings, it was kind of overwhelming. Salaries, they were crazy compared to other industries. And it was quite easy to get promoted, I think. Compared to other careers, like in the web development, you could become a senior within 3-4 years. While in other industries, sometimes it was taking like around 20 or something like this. So it seemed that this will never end. Everywhere I looked, I saw people changing their career paths, going to boot camps, going to IT studies, like trying to break into IT industry. And let's be honest, like 3-4 years ago, it wasn't that hard, right? There was this running joke about the developer who lost his job, and his friend is asking him like, "So how did you felt?" And he was like, "The worst 5 minutes in my life." So that was the reality. And fast forward to today, the landscape has changed dramatically, I would say. We witnessed the biggest tech layoffs in a decade, and this doesn't seem to be a temporary issue. Like, most of the companies announced that they want to continue making layoffs. It also doesn't look like the jobs that were cut will be replaced by the new ones, because the number of job postings has dropped significantly compared to what we had, for example, during COVID. And it dropped significantly also compared to other job postings. And it is a global trend. And, I'm saying this, but I'm quite sure that, we all are in this industry, we all have friends who might maybe lost their jobs, or you're afraid that you might lose one. And, we know this anecdotally. But why I'm mentioning this? Like, definitely not to be a mood killer. I think, the atmosphere is actually amazing. So this is my 6th time on this stage. And until now, I've been only talking about the very deeply technical things, like mostly the performance talks, a little bit about e-commerce. I hope that some of you actually learned something from my performance talks that I've been doing, I think, like 5 times already. But this time today, I am doing different things during my daily job. I have a little bit different perspective as well. And I thought I can actually contribute a little bit more, or even much more, by talking about something less technical today. So when I first entered the stage in 2019, I was a front-end developer specializing in e-commerce and VueJS. who had an open source project, and a year later, I started a company called VueStorefront. Like, who heard about VueStorefront? Who knows VueStorefront? Like, some of you do. I keep mentioning this, actually, every year. So how many of you been here already? Okay, this matches more or less. This is good. Now the company is called Alokai, and we're basically building a front-end integration software for enterprise e-commerces that just want to modernize their stacks. And we had a quite successful path. Like, we were backed by a legendary startup incubator called Y Combinator, which I think at that time was the third company in Poland that was secured this backing. We're lucky enough to be backed by great funds with a lot of money to help us grow and become the best e-commerce company in our category. And I'm not telling all of this to brag. Believe me, like, my imposter syndrome is huge. I'm telling you this because the path that allowed me to change my perspective completely from being a developer to being a founder, and my understanding of like what a good developer is, I think this path allowed me to very well understand what really matters, and it's completely different from what I thought it is at the beginning of my career when I was a dev. And actually, I wish I knew this at the very beginning. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So before I move further, let's do a step back and try to understand also what is really happening in the industry right now, because I promise it will be a little bit reassuring. So I know a lot of you could feel a little bit insecure these days, but I hope I will reassure you that it's not an unexplored territory. So in short, there was a lot of money that was pumped into the tech companies during COVID, which created an unusual environment. But such environment cannot last forever. So what we're witnessing right now is not kind of like tech crisis, etc. We're seeing that market is actually starting to become normal. And to illustrate you the process, let's look at the example of a company and scale this to the whole industry. So imagine this. We have a company called X. Let's call it like Magic Unicorns. And they have a great idea for a product. So they pitch it to the investors. Investors are getting super excited about this. They're throwing a lot of money into them. The company builds an MVP, starts selling, and gets the initial traction. Here is where usually aggressive hiring starts. So early stage companies and products, also like early stage products in other companies, they usually lack a lot of fundamentals, do a lot of pivots, do a lot to please customers, and they also have a lot of money in the bank. So they're not concerned that much about increasing operational costs as long as they could grow, because what really matters for the investors and what really matters for those companies to actually get another round of financing is that they will keep growing. Even if the costs are increasing like this, and the growth is increasing like this, it is still great. It was still great. And there was a lot of money on the market. So this was the reality of tech business, especially startup business in 2020s. And COVID really accelerated it. Like, you saw that from the chart that I showed. But this kinds of bubbles has to end at some point. So when the money stops flowing at crazy pace, when all of those funded startups actually notice that the amount of users and the money that they're generating is not up to the expectations of the investors, when they had to change priority from growth to efficiency. And that's what happened on the market, on the larger scale. This is pretty much what happened. So a lot of money flowing, a lot of investments, a lot of excitement, and then reality check. And we had to move to the reality of running a business. So does it mean that we're cooked like a fried eggs or chicken, whatever you prefer? Does developer rule have to extinct? Like, will we all be replaced by AI? Is it like a complete crisis? Frankly, I don't think so. I think actually there's a lot of opportunities to grow these days. And I don't think it's a sign of tech industry dying. It's not a sign of programmers, developers starting to be obsolete. We've been there before not so long ago, actually, in a very similar situation. So the best way to predict the future is looking at the past. I'm sure you know this. And there is this quote from Mark Twain, who said that, the past, I actually have that quote here. Yeah, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So let's look at something from the past that actually rhymes with what we are seeing right now. Dot-com bubble. 25 years ago, a so-called dot-com bubble has bursted. A dot-com bubble happened because everyone got extremely excited about internet, software, pumped a lot of money into it, and then they realized that demand is not as high as they anticipated, not as high as they invested, so they stopped investing. And a lot of companies has died, a lot of companies had to make a huge layoffs, a shift from growth to efficiency. Sounds familiar? I think so. And I don't think we are even close to what happened then. There is still a lot of other challenges that made the job market challenging. First of all, like there's a lot of developers on the market right now. Like we saw this curve, right? Like all of those people, they either change their jobs or are right now on the market. And there's much less money on the market. So there is a lot of people applying for a single position, much more than before. So it's much harder, it's much more competitive, right? Secondly, we see AI adoption growing fast and it's targeting part of the work that developers do, which could mean that the demand for programming jobs will be even lower. I actually don't think so, but it could mean that. Though, people were saying exactly the same thing when we had a no-code boom. Also that no-code will actually replace developers. Right now we have plenty of amazing no-code tools, like people who have absolutely no clue about the technology could pretty much build anything right now if they have enough time, and it's still not happening. So I'm quite sure that the role of the developer will change, and we should be flexible enough to sometimes be aware that, from the 100% of the knowledge that we're accumulating in 20 years, maybe only 5% right now will be relevant, and we just need to learn new skills and accept the fact that people that are new in the industry and are also learning those new skills, they will be on the same level as us. But also, if we are doing this early, then we have an advantage. So I wouldn't stick, to the old ways of doing things. I would actually embrace the new ones, because then you are early on the market, and like in 3-4 years, you'll actually be a senior in something that a lot of people are still denying is happening. So your knowledge, your past knowledge, will also still be relevant, especially right now when we'll have a lot of new engineers that will be mostly doing AI, and they will have a lot of problems with digging into like specific issues. There's also a general feeling of uncertainty and chaos on the market in the world for some reasons. So I think despite that, great developers, like those 10x developers, mythical 10x developers, will still be in high demand, and I doubt anything, really anything will change that. It's as simple as that. If you're good at something, you won't have any problem with finding a job. So from this curve, like there are still like top developers, they won't have any issues. Like the ones that will likely be replaced by AI, the ones that will likely not be hired, are just the ones that are not good enough. That's the sad reality. So the best way to make sure that the changes on the market, like the current one, the previous one, the next ones, won't affect you, it was always the same, just become one of the top developers, right? But what does it mean to be this 10x developer, right? I'm sure the definition is completely subjective, mine is also subjective, but I want to share with you my perspective as a business owner that I think is more or less aligned with other perspectives of other business owners, so you can learn from this and do whatever you want with this knowledge. At least give it a thought and ask yourself some questions. So probably the most important thing that will help you to put yourself in the, I don't know, like top 1% of developers is becoming more business-minded. And believe me, this is such a big issue for so many developers, even very, very experienced. They very often struggle a lot or just deny that it is important to have a business mindset as a developer. They are too tied to technology. And you can be a great expert with strong technical skills, but if you don't understand the business, like ask yourself a question, can you even assess if what you're doing is the right thing? Because it could be that from the technical perspective, your definition of success is completely different than the real definition of success. There could be decisions that make a lot of sense from the technical perspective, but are just counterproductive for the business. So not to mention that if you won't understand this business context, you will have a very big problem in coming up with things that can contribute to the business. By the way, do you also hear echo, or is it only me?
Yeah, we do. There is echo, yeah.
Is it something we should do something about, or is it fine? It's fine, okay, so it's fine. Okay, so ask yourself a question. Like, if all of you probably work in some kind of company. Some of you probably in more than one. So ask yourself a question: do you understand the business of the company that you work for? But like, do you really understand this business? Like, do you know how the company makes money? But not in a way like, we are selling services. Like, do you really know what subscriptions or services you are selling? Like, why the customers are choosing them over the offering from the other companies? What are the biggest threats and opportunities for this business? Like, ask yourself this question, like, do you even know this? Because if you don't know that, I hate to say this, but at least from my perspective, I don't think you're a great developer. Because your goal is to create or to build technical solutions to business problems, right? And if you don't understand the business problems, if you don't understand the business, you don't really know the problem you're solving or you're trying to solve, right? So again, your definition of success could be completely wrong. And if you look at the problem purely from the technical perspective, it could be a very distorted perspective. And believe me or not, again, I've seen this so many times. It is extremely, extremely problematic that a lot of developers stick too much into the technology, stick too much into like this technical perspective, and don't try even to understand why they're writing the code. Sometimes writing the code is a goal on its own, and it's not a goal on its own. It's just a tool. A 10x developer, I hate this saying, by the way, but like a 10x developer is a true problem solver from my perspective. Not someone that just completes tasks one after another, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, but like a real problem solver. What I mean by this? First of all, like when we look at just completing the tasks from the Jira board, this is actually something that AI is becoming increasingly better at. And I think maybe we're like half a year from it being able to very accurately take a Jira ticket and just implement the solution. So if this is the only thing that you're doing, you still have time to readjust, but I think it's a high time to think about this. So if you see a task or if you see a bug report, like think through it, really think through it. Don't just blindly jump into the code, because maybe instead of patching it, you can spend a little bit of time, a little bit of additional thinking, and solve a whole class of problems instead of solving one problem, or maybe not even solving it by patching it, right? An example. There is a SaaS company, and the SaaS company is having performance issues, and you're tasked with improving this. So what would be the most obvious solution to any kind of performance issues? Who can tell me? Who was listening to? Yes, caching. Very good. I don't have any words, but like maybe if you will go there and ask, maybe they will give you something. There's plenty of water in there. So obviously, the best way to fix this problem is through more effective caching. And we can add like thousands of caching layers. Like there can be a front-end caching layer, there can be like an SSR caching layer, there can be API caching layer, like everything can be cached, right? The problem is caching usually does not solve the problem. It is only a patch on the symptoms. The real problem could be somewhere else. And also caching itself is introducing a whole new class of problems that you usually don't want to deal with. So most likely, it is not the root cause of the poor performance. It's not the root cause of poor page loading. Maybe the issue lies in unoptimized network calls or something wrong in a backend, like an unmaintainable spaghetti code that was written by a developer who left the company 5 years ago, and everyone are afraid to touch it, but maybe this is the time to touch this piece of code, right? So go there, solve the root cause. Maybe you won't even need caching at all yet, because at certain scale probably you will. Never just blindly jump into things without assessing if there's a better solution. Also, not every problem is worth solving, and this is super important. So there is a business metric called ROI. Who knows ROI? Very good. Very good. So this already puts you probably ahead of many developers. So ROI, which stands for return of investment, it describes how much money a company made on a certain investment. And if the return is below 100%, it means that the company lost money on it. If it's above 100%, it means that they earned something. And this, I think, is a core metric that every company in the world is optimizing for, especially in the times of uncertainty. And it all goes from the very bottom, like ROI of small things accumulates to ROI of the big things, and then we have ROI of everything that we do, right? And the best way to make good decisions is actually to treat everything that you or your team that you're leading do as an investment. So like, take an average salary, multiply it by hours, and then you see how much doing a certain task costs, more or less, right? There is also another thing, opportunity cost. Opportunity cost stands for a loss of potential benefits coming from choosing one of the alternatives. So if you combine those two things, whenever you want to pursue a task, ask yourself if this is actually a good investment and if there is a better one you can make. So like, let's say you have a UI library, right? And this UI library is causing a lot of issues. People don't like it. And you want to migrate the whole project to a new one. Good. But do you really waste so much time that investing weeks or maybe months on rewriting this UI library is something that will pay for this wasted time? Like, are we really wasting like weeks or months every quarter or something like this? So it's an investment that will pay itself, like, let's say, in a year. Also, is it the most important problem to fix right now, or maybe there is something that can give us a better ROI very fast that we can also achieve in this time? So try to look at this from this perspective. And last but not least in this piece, remember that your goal is to solve problems. And not all of them can be solved through code. This is another, I would say, toxic trait of many developers. Like, they don't look at themselves as a problem solvers. Why? Even though our brains are trained to solve problems, we only look at the code as the only tool that we have to really do anything. And sometimes the best contribution you can make is actually a documentation page. Sometimes the best contribution you can make is going to a customer call and helping the salespeople close a deal. Sometimes it's just conducting a training for another team because there is lack of alignment, and you keep having problems with shipping things together. So like really think what is the most valuable contribution you can make. Not always think about the code as the only weapon or tool that you have in your arsenal. And AI can write code, but no matter how good it is, it will never replace a true problem solver. So that's another advantage we can have against the AI. And this could sound very obvious, but a lot of developers do not take ownership of the things that they're responsible for. So believe me, it's a manager's nightmare to have developers that they cannot depend on and that they have to check on regularly. So if you are responsible for a certain area or a certain project or a certain task, own it. Make sure it's always delivered on time, like communicate properly about the status. If there are any obstacles, like communicate about them early. Like make yourself dependable. And when you see that people are giving you the most important tasks because they know that they can rely on you, this means that you're doing something right. If they don't, if you're constantly getting the easiest tasks or the ones that are not super important, it means that you're actually not taking enough ownership. And it's not a good signal. Last but definitely not least, a very common problem in many organizations is lack of collaboration between different departments. It's especially between engineering and business. So those are usually two completely different worlds. Like in many organizations, the salespeople, they don't know the engineers and vice versa. They don't know what they're doing. It is becoming a problem at some point. It's causing a lot of frustration, but it is also causing a lot of weird situations when there is a lack of alignment. The salespeople could sell something that doesn't exist, for example, or they could explain something in a way that is completely inappropriate. So in many cases, developers even get mad when the sales or customer success is coming to them and asking them to either support a customer, go to a sales call, or prepare something. So don't be that person, because ultimately in the organization, like, there is one goal. The organization has one goal. Everyone are contributing to this goal from a different perspective, but we need to collaborate. Like in the end, we are sharing the same goal, and it's damn stupid for me that sometimes people are very protective about the area that they are focusing on, and they're completely dismissing that someone else could need help, and you're actually the person that could provide this help. And at this point, you're probably wondering, Filip, like, what about technical skills? Like, we're developers, right? Are they important? And this is actually why this talk is not what you think it is, because it might be shocking, controversial, but at least from what I saw, what people were usually getting promoted, what people were usually the most successful, what people I like to work with, the technical skills are not that important as you think. Like, average skills are absolutely enough. Smart people can actually find a lot of ways to compensate for their lack of knowledge, and this is usually the right way, but you cannot do the same with the soft skills, though. So soft skills are actually much more important to nourish. And truth is, every company wants to hire A players, so-called A players, and these are the people who are always most rewarded because they bring the most value to the company, right? And the traits of an A player, they're quite universal. Like, no matter if you're a marketer, engineer, sales guy, no matter in which department you work, they're more or less the same. And of course, you have to be a good developer. You have to be a good marketer. You have to be a good salesman. You need to learn fundamentals. But frankly, this is just the foundation. This doesn't make you great. Like, the soft skills are what makes you great. And all of those things, they're great ways to increase your salary, get a promotion, avoid being laid off, hopefully not when the business needs to make cuts. But I think the most important thing, really, is that following those suggestions, I hope, will help you to feel that your work is actually making bigger impact. And let's be honest, like, we are spending like 1/3 of our lives at work, if we're lucky. So let's make sure that we feel that it's time well spent, because there's no better feeling, at least from my perspective, than seeing that the time you're putting into something is actually making an impact. And that's how I want to end this. So thank you so much. I hope you learned something, and have a great day.